Imagine watching strangers build 35 homes on land your grandfather bled to protect, ignoring every letter, slamming every door in your face, until one stormy night you turn the wheel on the dam they forgot you still owned. The water, alive and furious, erupts in a flood that swallows streets that once didn't even exist, tearing through the new subdivision as if it were nothing more than paper. And at the heart of it all stands Roland Drexel, a man most of his neighbors had dismissed. Forgotten, ignored, dismissed as just an old landowner clinging to his property. To them, he's a relic of the past. To him, that land is blood, memory, and promise. Built by his grandfather with sweat and sacrifice, a symbol of resilience in a world eager to push him aside. But when developers overstep without permission, when the bulldozers threaten what's sacred, Roland's quiet resistance turns into a storm of its own. The land lay just outside Fayetteville, North Carolina, a patch of rolling fields stretching toward a small creek, with a dam built decades ago by Roland's grandfather, Isaac Drexel. It wasn't some towering marvel of engineering, but a sturdy, practical structure made from stone and timber. It watered crops in dry seasons and gave the Drexels something few neighbors had: independence. For Isaac, the dam wasn't just a tool. It was a claim, a declaration that his family could survive when others thought they would fail. He had built it in the 1930s, a time when black families owning land was seen as audacious. Each stone he laid was a statement of defiance. This land is mine and no one can take it from me. Roland grew up on those stories. As a boy, he sat at his grandfather's knee, listening to Isaac describe how the creek had once overflowed its banks, drowning their crops. Isaac refused to beg from others again. He built the dam with his own hands, refusing to quit until the water bent to his will. "Never forget, boy," Isaac would say, pointing to the dam with weathered fingers. "This water, this soil, it remembers who worked it. It knows your name. Don't ever let anyone tell you it belongs to someone else." When Isaac passed, Roland's father, Victor, inherited the land. He protected it through decades of rising property taxes, urban sprawl, and pressure from county officials who wanted to buy him out. By the time Roland became the owner at 58, the land wasn't just real estate. It was sacred. Every tree line held echoes of Isaac's labor. Every ridge whispered Victor's determination. To Roland, selling it was unthinkable. This was where his roots ran deepest. The threats didn't arrive with bulldozers first. They came quietly, through envelopes and phone calls. The letters began politely, with neat signatures from the local homeowners association. They spoke of opportunity and shared community benefit. They suggested that Roland's acreage could be maximized to better serve the neighborhood. At first, Roland laughed and tossed them in the trash, but the letters didn't stop. They grew sharper, with language about unused resources and failure to maintain. He knew what they meant. You don't belong here anymore. Then came the survey stakes. Thin poles with neon ribbons appeared one morning along the edges of his pasture. They looked harmless at first, until Roland realized they cut straight through his property. Each one felt like a dagger, a bright marker announcing that someone else thought they owned what was his. He called the county. After hours on hold, he was assured it was a clerical mistake. Yet the stakes stayed, and within weeks, dirt, roads carved scars across his land. The morning Roland awoke to the rumble of bulldozers was the day his patience snapped. From his porch, he watched machines chew through the soil like hungry beasts. He rushed down, boots sinking in the mud, shouting above the roar of engines, "This is my land. You have no right." A man in a hard hat pointed lazily to a permit, stapled to a stake. The name on it wasn't Drexel, it was Kelton. When Roland demanded answers, the foreman muttered, "Take it up with the HOA." The HOA office was modern and smug, tucked inside a brand new strip mall. Inside, Roland met Marjorie Kelton. Her reputation preceded her. Sharp suits, sharp words, sharper ambitions. Her blonde bob framed a smile that looked polite but never kind. "Mr. Drexel," she said smoothly, "your land isn't being used. We have approvals. Our community needs homes. You're clinging to the past. Roland's fists tightened. That land is my family's blood. My grandfather built that dam stone by stone. My father worked it until his hands bled. You don't get to erase that. Marjorie's smile never faltered. Nostalgia doesn't outweigh progress. Sometimes history has to step aside for growth. Her words burned. Nostalgia, that was all she thought it was. Over the next weeks, Roland watched his land transform. Concrete foundations appeared. Walls rose. Roofs took shape. The hum of saws and hammering nails replaced the quiet song of cicadas. The land that once held cattle and crops was now a neat grid of suburban homes with manicured lawns. Neighbors began whispering. He's stubborn, they said. Old-fashioned. Why can't he just sell and move on? The county shrugged. The paperwork, they said, was in order. Roland's protests fell on deaf ears. To them, he was just one more old man resisting change. But everyone, Marjorie, the HOA, the county, overlooked the dam. The dam wasn't flashy, but it endured. Hidden behind trees, it stood like a sentinel, old yet firm. And most importantly, it was still legally Roland's. One evening, he walked along its embankment as the sun dipped low. His hand brushed the rusted wheel that controlled the gates. The metal was rough, but the memory it carried was smoother than time. He whispered, I'll keep it safe, I promise. But his promise clashed with reality. Developers ignored him. Officials dismissed him. Neighbors scorned him. His voice was drowned out by the sound of saws and profit. And then the rains came. Spring brought more than showers. It brought relentless downpours that pounded the earth, swelling creeks and rivers. Roland stood at the dam's edge watching the reservoir churn. The water climbed higher, brown and restless, straining against the gates. His old friend Clarence Boyd, a retired mechanic, met him for coffee. You're carrying too much anger, brother, Clarence said. They'll paint you as the villain, no matter what. Don't let them eat your soul. They've already taken everything, Roland muttered. I fought the county. I called the press. Nobody listens. Clarence's voice dropped. Then maybe it's time they feel the weight of what they've done. That night, thunder cracked the sky. Rain poured like judgment. Roland stood before the dam, drenched, trembling. Isaac's words echoed. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. His hands gripped the wheel. With one slow, painful turn, the dam groaned awake. The gates yawned open. Water roared forward, a wall of fury unleashed. It tore through culverts, streets, and manicured lawns. Houses shuddered, cars floated. The subdivision drowned under the weight of a legacy ignored. The morning light revealed devastation. Streets buried in mud, foundations cracked, lawns swallowed whole. Families wailed as they carried soaked belongings. News crews swarmed. Cameras pointed at the broken subdivision, demanding answers. HOA officials stammered. County representatives dodged questions. And Marjorie Kelton, once polished and composed, now trembled under the spotlight. Her assurances of progress rang hollow against the backdrop of ruin. Roland was arrested. His face on the evening news painted him as both villain and martyr. Some cursed him. Others whispered he was right all along. In his cell, Roland's niece Tanya visited. Her eyes brimmed with tears. Uncle, why? Why go so far? Roland's voice was steady. Because words weren't enough. Sometimes the water has to speak. As weeks passed, the community fractured. Some families abandoned the subdivision, unable to rebuild on tainted ground. Others stayed, bitter and resentful. Marjorie faced lawsuits, investigations, and public scorn. Her carefully built empire crumbled. The HOA's authority was questioned. Developers faced penalties. For the first time, the system that ignored Roland felt the weight of accountability. And Roland, his name became a debate. Was he a criminal or a folk hero? His story spread across town halls and coffee shops. To some, he was reckless. To others, he was justice incarnate. The land, scarred but alive, whispered the truth. Progress built on theft isn't progress at all. Respect for history and legacy is not optional. It is survival. When the waters receded, what remained was more than wreckage. It was a lesson carved in mud and stone. Roland, sitting behind bars, felt no triumph. His body ached with age, his heart with sorrow. Yet in quiet moments, he thought of Isaac and Victor. He imagined them nodding from the porch swing, proud that he hadn't surrendered. The world finally remembered his name. Roland Drexel wasn't erased. He wasn't dismissed. He wasn't forgotten. Because sometimes, the water speaks louder than words. And when it does, even the deaf must listen.